What if I told you if the only difference between a consistent trader and an inconsistent one is a journal? I know that sounds insane because everyone told you it's about finding a better strategy or fixing your psychology. And I believed that too. And I stayed stuck in that one good week and then give it all back loop for years. That is until I fixed how I journal. And I mean actually journal, not the useless version that you've already tried. So in this video, I'm giving you the 3-step journaling system that finally changed everything for me, to the point where I'm making 30 to 50K a month just from trading. And I promise you, if you can stick to this just for 30 days, you'll watch yourself become a better trader faster than you ever expect. So let's get into part 1 of the system. Here's the thing nobody realizes for some reason. You can never fix what you haven't wrote down. If you're not logging your trades, you're not trading a system. You're just praying one day you'll magically become profitable, which, by the way, it won't happen. And the part that actually matters isn't even the win or loss. It's the why behind the trade. And something that bothers me a lot is when I ask a trader why they took the trade, not the setup, the actual reason, and they literally have no clue. They can't answer me. They don't know why they got in, why they won, why they lost, nothing. And I'm telling you right now, if you can't tell me why you took it, you're gonna take it again, and you won't know why that one lost either. And you're just gonna be stuck in an infinite loop of this. Does that make sense? So part 1 of this system is data collection. You need to collect and log your data if you actually want to become profitable. This turns your trading into data you can read instead of feeling like you're chasing. Okay, let me give you a real example. Last year, there was a couple points where my win rate actually spiked. Everything looked great, but I still wasn't seeing it in my P&L. I literally couldn't figure out why. So I went and looked at my data and I saw it instantly. There was a discrepancy in my average risk to reward. Basically, I was winning small and losing big. For example, you ever felt like you had a good week in trading? Maybe you lost 2 trades and you won 4, but you're still negative? That's kind of what I was looking at. And maybe it's in your data that you'll figure out why. And that's the whole point of this. I couldn't see that until it was actually written down. And there's one thing that I log on every single trade, and no other trader uses this, and it helped me significantly. And I'll show you exactly what that is in a second. Okay, so this is my actual journal, and these are a couple entries that I've had earlier in the year. Let me take you through them. So first off, I'm gonna explain why I have everything in here and what they are. So the date, obviously I need to track what day. The day, the session, New York AM session, New York PM session, and Asia session. Those are sessions I trade. The time I took it. Listen, that is important. I'll explain later in the video. The instrument, I trade ES, NQ, MNQ, direction, long or short, entry model. All of my entry models, they carry a different win rate. They carry a different average risk reward. For example, my OTEs happen to have a higher risk reward than my IFG plays. Always need my 3 C's, as always: context, confluence, and confirmation. That goes with everything. That is my entire model. So if I don't have context, I don't have a higher time frame bias. I don't know where the market wants to go. So if I don't have my second C, confluence, I don't know where we're delivering from or where we are drawing to, or drawing liquidity. And then C3 is our confirmation. What confirmed the setup for me to take it? Sometimes with my IFG trades, is it close above the IFG? With my OTE trade, is the reaction off the 705, etc. How many contracts I am using, my entry point, my stop loss, my target, my exit, all of those matter for average risk reward, the amount of points in my stop, and how much risk I am putting on the table. Now, this is important because not a lot of people actually know how much their max risk is each trade. And that is very important for the problem I was facing, where I didn't know why my losers were bigger than my winners, because your risk reward needs to be on lock and you need to know your max risk so you don't over lose on a trade that you probably shouldn't have. So you lower your contracts if your stop loss is bigger, and you can use more size if your stop loss is lower, but you need to have a consistent max loss until you can size up. And then I have my planned risk reward, and then my result, obviously my P&L, the outcome, win or loss, important, or break even. Did I follow my rules, right? We need to be honest with each other. I am not going to sugarcoat this. If you did not follow your rules in the slightest bit, you need to log that. Again, nothing on this journal can be fabricated, because guess what? That fabricates your data. And how does that affect you in your trading? It doesn't give you the right discrepancies within your data, so you don't know what to fix, and you get stuck in a loop like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? And then you grade the setup, obviously A+, B+, whatever it is. And then the mistake tag, that's another big one too. You make sure to mark down the mistakes. And like I said earlier, even if it's the slightest mistake, mark it down. Because over time, if you know what mistakes you're making and you conquer them, how many more mistakes can you make? And then I have my cognitive bias, my emotion before and after, and then also my notes. Now, I want you to read something in my notes. So you see these times at the end of these trades? Well, that shows you how long I was in the trades. And you can see with my wins and losses, I am usually in a trade for shorter than a certain amount of time if I win, and longer a certain amount of time if I lose. It's all similar, and that's what makes the discrepancies within the data so loud. That is something that no other trader uses, and I want you to take that and try it yourself. You're gonna be surprised the discrepancies within that data once you actually time your trades. And you'll see most of your losers are probably longer because you have the faith that it's gonna come back after the stop loss gets hit, right? You keep holding it, and that is your discrepancy. So fix it. And then my cumulative RR, my P&L, win streak, loss streak, peak, and drawdown. You might be thinking, Luca, there is so many things on this spreadsheet. And I said, hell yeah, there is. I need to know every single piece of data so I know what I'm doing wrong, so I don't get in that position of not knowing why I'm stuck. But collecting all this data is the easy part. What you do with it next is what separated me from every other trader stuck at break even. So part 2 of the system. Think about going to a doctor. For example, if your knees hurt, a good doctor doesn't start working on your arm. He diagnoses the actual injury first, and then he gives the medicine for that. This journal system works the exact same way. All that data is useless until you sit down and actually find the one thing that is costing you money. That's called refining, and it's step 2 of the system. Because most people will log their trades and then never look back at them again. The data just piles up. So refining is really just this. You look at all your trades together and then you find the leak in your trade. And you'll see it like actually shows up in ways you never catch in your head. Maybe every red day is coming from one specific session. Maybe your A+ setups actually lose more than your B+ setups. Maybe your average R is way lower than you thought. I don't know, like mine was in that example I just gave you. The point is, you're not guessing anymore. The leak basically becomes a number, and it's way easier to become a profitable trader when you're working off numbers, not just the gut feeling, for example. So looking at my journal again, let me show you how to kind of see the discrepancies within your data. For example, during this time, I understood that I was sizing up because I was feeling good about my trading and confident about price action, but every time I got above 8 mini contracts on my live account, I always lost. And I'm like, okay, if I see that within my data, then there's things I gotta fix. So it's as simple as looking at, okay, in your journal, how many contracts are you using for every trade? If it gets above a certain point and you tend to lose more than not, when it gets above that certain point, then that's probably a reason that's happening. So looking at every single piece of data, I'm looking at every column and figuring out what makes me lose more. Because if I looked at the entry or the stop or the confirmation or the confluence out of these 3 trades that I lost, nothing else looks different other than my contract size. And then that's where you figure out the problem and then you work from there. All right, so you collected the data, you found the leak, but how do you actually close it for good? That's in part 3 of the system. So now you got a problem you can clearly see, like black and white. The question is, what do you actually do with it? This is the step that took me from break even to consistent. But I also taught this to my students like Nick, who went from 0 payouts to 5 to 7 payouts a month now in just 1 or 2 months. As well, it helped my student Milo get 50 payouts in just under a year. Or Bill, who can now stop going to overtime at his job and spend more time with his wife and kids because of that income. And if you're interested in the same one-on-one help that I gave them to be more consistent, you can click the top link in the description. But part 3 of the system is execution. Execution means taking that one thing that you diagnosed and turning it into one written rule. Basically an if then that's rule that takes the decision out of your hands while you're trading. So no emotional thinking. So back to my example, I found out that when I sized higher, my psychology was getting ahead of itself, so I didn't know what to do emotionally because I wasn't used to it. And that became a rule for me. If I'm not psychologically comfortable with the sizing I'm using inside of a trade, then I am not going to take it, or I'm just gonna size down. So this is my rules tab and my reference tab inside of my journal. So I'm gonna write the actual if then rule that I just created within the discrepancy I saw. This is how it would go. I would type risk management to psychology. So that is the category I'm putting it in. And then the explanation here would be, if I am feeling emotional about the trade or setup because of my position size, then size down or don't take the trade at all. And I mean don't take the trade at all because if you can't manage your stop loss, let's say it's not the invalidation point, then you can't change your risk. So don't even take the trade at all. And these are some of my other rules, like no stop widening. If stop was set once, it only moves to break even, never away. No trades after 12 on a Friday. Entries only inside of the defined window, no exceptions for a good looking chart. Obviously I trade at key times as well, and that's very important, and a lot of other stuff. And just to show you as well, these are some other things inside of my journal. I have a reference, I have instrument specs, hard rules, cognitive bias tags, mistake tags, setup grade rubric, the 5 entry models, the 3 C's, just as a reference. And then my weekly review right here. So all of my weekly reviews. So instead of thinking on a daily basis, I can have a weekly basis. And then this is my performance dashboard. So all of my performances throughout my time journaling, and then the other page, which is my trade log. So that's the whole thing. It's not like flashy or anything. It's not anything crazy. I know there's a lot of words and data, but it's not crazy. It's what you need. It's necessary. But honestly, it's kind of boring. Collect the data, find the discrepancy, write down the rule. And like I said, if you want me in your corner running this with you, looking at your data and finding the leaks with you, that's exactly what we do every single day inside of the one-on-one mentorship. For example, I was on a 3-hour-long call with my student Alex yesterday and fixed so many things and discrepancies within his data. When Caden told me that he wanted to quit, he couldn't take it mentally because of a psychological issue, I called him, met with him, and now he's flipping 50K months like it's nothing. And when I told Nick to only trade AM session because his leaks were in PM session or Asia session, he now is just flipping top step payouts like nothing. The link to apply is at the top of the description. Thank you for watching.